I consider myself a competitive gamer. Most of my gaming hours these days are still spent around competitive first-person shooters, and over the past couple of years I've completely migrated my peripherals to wireless stuff. From the G Pro Superlight that performs just as good as any other wired gaming alternative for the mouse department, to my latest custom keyboard that uses 2.4 GHz and performs just as good as it looks. But audio has always been a different thing. So I wanted to see if it's possible at all to find some IEMs that perform on par with my Moondrop Arias in the sound department, but they work wirelessly to remove that final cable from my desk and complete this entire wireless setup, excluding all the cables that run behind a monitor and behind a PC. But you know, if you can't see them, do they really exist? And these were the IEMs that I decided to test, the Tin HIFI Tin Buds 3. They support the latest Bluetooth 5.2, which should mean low audio latency, as low as pretty much current tech allows, which is definitely one of my main concerns with this entire wireless mission. They also only cost around $70, and for that price they definitely look wonderful. I got the black and green color, but they also come in a more flashy but equally nice light blue. Now, this particular pair was provided by a store called Linsol. They enjoy the content on the channel and wanted to help us out with some product, and I'm very grateful for that, but that in no way affects anything that I have to say about these. With that said, I'll leave some links in the description to their store in case you want to check them out, but they are not affiliate. I earn nothing from this, so you know, you do as you please. The size and the fit were immediately really comfortable. I have quite small ears, and even though these are definitely bigger than my Moondrop Arias, they are about as comfortable, and that's a very good thing. If you intend to use these earbuds on the go and sort of use them for everything from gaming to working out, keep in mind that they protrude a little bit outside the ear, which means that running, for example, will make these loose if your ears are similar shaped to mine. Then let's talk sound, and all of my testing was done on my main rig with a PCI Express card with Bluetooth 5.2 antennas on the back, so it should represent sort of like a best case scenario for range, quality, and codec support, and immediately they definitely sound balanced-ish, but there are some problems. At this point in my audio journey, I have pretty much figured out that I enjoy a sound signature that's quite even and neutral with a little bit of a bass boost to go along with it. And the Tin Buds are a little bit more V-shaped than I would have liked. That pretty much means that the highs are a little bit too high, the bass is a little bit too boosted, but there's no sub bass to go along with it. But more importantly, the mid-range is a little too muted, which makes voices and music that's very dependent on the vocals sound a little bit tame and unenergetic, if that makes sense to you. And when it comes to gaming, this lack of sub bass makes it so that the little bit of fun when firing a weapon, for example, doesn't really register on the IEMs with a little bit of a thump. It's very flat in that sense, even though it's quite boosted in the bass region, but overall it isn't a bad sound. They sound perfectly fine, and I had no problem picking up sound cues and positioning them around me. So that's definitely a good enough in my book, even though they don't sound super fun and engaging like I probably would have preferred. With that said, in my book, the sound is fine for what you pay for, but the biggest thing that jumped out to me is the fact that there's definitely some white noise, particularly apparent when you have them stuck in your ears and you're playing nothing. It isn't loud or super high pitched, so you can definitely get used to it and tune it out, but you know, no matter the IEM or headphone, it's issues like these that I will always point out because to me, I find them pretty annoying. But the most annoying thing has to be the latency. Now, we're simply not there yet when it comes to how fast an IEM connection via Bluetooth can be. So even though these are fine for most uses, like watching videos, playing more slower paced games, for example, they're definitely more than fast enough. For FPS games, I mean, there's a little bit of a disconnect that the best way that I've managed to put it into words, it's like when you're playing on a server that has 100 or 150 milliseconds of ping, and you fire the gun and the hit marks are a little delayed, and there's sort of like a sluggishness feel that comes with that. That's what these feel like. And I feel like for FPS games, I mean, there's a certain rhythm to firing a gun and how you perceive the recoil. There's a mixture of visual recoil and sound, and you sort of train your muscle memory to kick the gun down with it. So having that delay there definitely played tricks with my mind, and I was playing weird because of it, I feel. So, you know, it's definitely not good enough for competitive shooters, but there's a multitude of different games. For example, if you have your sim racing setup on the corner of your room and your PC on the other, and running a cable would be too cumbersome, these are definitely good enough for that type of use, but for me, competitive FPS, still not there. For everything else, they are good enough. Another issue that I found that I'm not too sure how niche this is I tend to use the Dolby Atmos app through the Dolby Access on the Windows Store, and I use that for spatial audio for most of my games and quite enjoy the more expanded sound. I don't feel like you can position anything better necessarily, but it just sounds more ample in game, and in movies it sounds pretty great. But if you intend to use something like that with spatial audio on Windows or Dolby Atmos on Windows, the audio suffers from cutouts with just drops in signal that tend to go artifacty. Not too sure what that's all about, but the only fix that I found was just turning off spatial audio completely on Windows. So, you know, if that's something that you use and really rely on for whatever that you do, keep in mind that the wireless here is simply not good enough. So for my daily use with video editing and playing competitive FPS games, I still think I'm gonna keep the wires here on the corner of the desk, unfortunately. So I'm gonna go back to my Sennheiser HD6XX if I want headphones, and if I want the much more comfy ones that I've recently made a video about, the Moondrop Arias, I'm still gonna deal with this thin and lightweight cable because, you know, they're pretty good. So if you're maybe interested in that, you can check that video out. I'll leave links around. Oh, but you're here, but it's absolutely nothing to do with earbuds, IEMs, headphones, anything of the matter. You're just here for some feline action, and I will surely and very gladly share with you. Huge thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you very soon. Bye.